Welcome to Enchanted Sleep. Tonight, let your body settle completely into the place you're resting. Let your hands soften. Let your breathing slow on its own, the way the tide slows in the last hour before dawn. There is nowhere you need to be tonight except exactly here. Tonight, we travel to the edge of the land, where the sea meets the sky, and an old light still turns, slowly, for anyone who needs to find their way home. Close your eyes, and let the story begin. There was once a keeper named Marin, no relation to any keeper you may have heard of before, simply a woman who had spent her whole life listening to the sea. She tended a lighthouse at the very end of a long, rocky point, where the land gave up trying to hold back the ocean and simply let it be. The lighthouse was old, older than the village behind it, older than the maps that marked its light, built from pale stone that had weathered 1,000 storms and somehow grown only gentler for it. Every evening, Marin climbed the narrow spiral stairs to light the great lamp at the top, and every evening, the light swept slowly out across the dark water, patient and unhurried, searching for no one in particular, simply offering itself to anyone who might need it. Tonight was a quiet night. The sea was calm, the air mild, the kind of late evening where the whole world seems to exhale at once. Marin climbed the stairs, as she always did, her hand trailing along the smooth stone wall worn soft by generations of hands before her own. At the top, the great lamp waited, its glass clear and clean, its old brass fittings gleaming faintly in the day's last light. She lit it, and as the beam swept out across the darkening water, something unusual happened. The light, instead of simply sweeping past, seemed to catch on something just offshore, a soft shimmer, like moonlight pooling on water, except the moon had not yet risen. Marin leaned closer to the glass, watching. The shimmer grew, gentle and golden, and slowly a shape began to rise from the calm water below. It was a boat, though unlike any boat Marin had ever seen pull into the small harbor below her lighthouse. Its hull seemed woven from pale driftwood and something like captured starlight, glowing softly from within. Its single sail billowed gently, though there was no wind that Marin could feel, shifting in colors that didn't quite belong to any sunset she'd witnessed: soft rose, deep lavender, the palest gold. The boat drifted slowly toward the rocky point, guided, it seemed, by nothing but the lighthouse's beam itself. Marin made her way back down the spiral stairs, her heart unhurried, curious rather than afraid. She had tended this light for so many years that she had come to trust the sea's strange gifts more than she feared them. By the time she reached the small dock below, the boat had settled gently against the worn wooden planks, as if it had always known exactly where to come to rest. A figure stepped from the boat, tall, weathered in the particular way that comes not from age, but from years spent somewhere vast and elemental. Their coat seemed woven from the same pale, glowing driftwood as the boat itself, and their eyes held the deep, calm blue-gray of the sea on an overcast morning. "Your light found me," the figure said. Their voice carried the soft rasp of salt air and old rope. "It usually takes longer." "Most things that need finding," Marin said, "eventually find their way to this light. That's rather the point of it." The figure smiled, the lines around their eyes deepening like the soft creases of a well-worn map. "I am Kale," they said. "I have sailed a very long time, Keeper. Longer, I think, than I meant to." "Then perhaps," Marin said, "you should come up. The kettle is always warm." They climbed the spiral stairs together. Slowly, Kale's hand trailing the same worn stone that countless hands had softened over the centuries. At the top, in the small room just beneath the great lamp, Marin had a simple stove, a kettle, 2 mismatched chairs, and a window that looked out over the entire dark sweep of the sea. She made tea. Kale sat by the window, watching the lighthouse beam sweep slowly across the water, out and around, patient as a held breath. "How long have you sailed?" Marin asked, settling into the chair across from him. Kale considered this for a long moment, the way someone considers a question they have avoided answering, even to themselves, for a very long time. "Long enough," they said finally, "that I have forgotten what it feels like to arrive anywhere. I have spent so many years chasing the horizon that I am not sure I remember how to simply stop. What were you chasing? Marin asked gently. I'm not entirely sure anymore, Kale admitted. Perhaps I was chasing the next shore. Perhaps I was running from the last one. After enough years at sea, the two start to feel like the same thing. Marin nodded slowly, wrapping both hands around her warm cup. The sea does that, she said. It makes you forget that stillness is even an option. Out there, everything moves: the water, the wind, the light on the waves. It's easy to believe that you have to keep moving too, simply because everything around you does. And you, Kale asked, don't you feel that tending a light at the very edge of the world? Marin smiled, glancing toward the great lamp turning steadily above them. I did once, she said, until I learned that the lamp doesn't move to do its work. It simply turns slowly in one place and lets its light go out to do the moving for it. I think people can learn to do the same. Stay still. Let your light do the traveling instead of always dragging your whole self across the water. Outside, the sea had grown calmer still, the small waves below softening into long, slow ripples that caught the lighthouse beam and scattered it into 1,000 small, gentle glimmers. Kale watched this for a long while in silence, their weathered hands wrapped around their own cup of tea, untouched, simply held for the warmth of it. I think, they said eventually, I have been afraid that if I ever stopped sailing, I would discover there was no reason I'd been sailing at all, that the chasing was the only thing giving my life any shape. Marin considered this carefully before answering, the way she considered the weather before deciding whether to climb the tower in a storm. Perhaps, she said, the shape was never in the chasing. Perhaps it was always in you, and the sailing simply gave you something to do while you were busy not noticing that. She paused. The light up there isn't useful because it moves fast or travels far. It's useful because it stays, because it can be trusted to still be here, turning, even on the darkest nights. Maybe you don't need to keep moving to matter, Kale. Maybe you only need to be somewhere steady enough to be trusted. Kale's eyes, when they finally looked up from the dark water, held something softer than Marin had seen in them before, not quite relief, but the beginning of it. I don't know how to be steady, they admitted quietly. I have never stayed anywhere long enough to learn. Then stay here tonight, Marin said simply. Just tonight. You don't have to know how. You only have to let the lighthouse hold the steadiness for you just this once while you rest. Marin led Kale to a small room 1 floor below the lamp room. Simple, round, its single window facing out over the dark, glimmering sea. A narrow bed sat against the curved stone wall, made up with old, soft quilts that smelled faintly of salt and lavender. This room has held many tired sailors over the years, Marin said. The lighthouse doesn't mind. It has more than enough light to spare and more than enough quiet to share. Kale sat slowly on the edge of the bed, looking out at the dark water through the small window, watching the beam sweep past, again and again, patient and unhurried. It's strange, they said. I have slept on the open water more nights than I can count, and yet I don't think I have ever truly rested, not like this. The open water never stops moving beneath you, Marin said gently. Even when you're still, it isn't. But this, she gestured to the solid stone walls around them, this stays. You can finally let your whole body believe that nothing beneath you is going to shift while you sleep. Kale lay back slowly onto the soft quilts, and for the first time in longer than they could remember, allowed their shoulders to fully release the tension they hadn't realized they'd been carrying. The constant, quiet readiness of someone who has spent years prepared for the sea to suddenly change beneath them. Here, nothing was going to change beneath them. Not tonight. Sleep, Marin said softly, moving toward the door. The light will keep turning. It always does. You don't have to watch it to trust that it will. Marin returned to the lamp room above, taking her usual seat by the great turning light, watching it sweep its slow, patient arc across the calm, glimmering sea. Below, she could faintly hear Kale's breathing through the thin floor, gradually slowing, deepening, settling into the unmistakable rhythm of true, deep sleep. The kind of sleep that comes only when a body finally believes, completely, that it is safe to let go. The lighthouse beam swept out, and around, and out again, illuminating nothing in particular, asking nothing of the dark water it touched, simply offering itself, over and over, the way it had for centuries, the way it would for centuries more. Marin thought of all the tired sailors who had washed up at this small dock over the years, each one carrying some version of the same exhaustion Cale now slept off in the room below. The particular tiredness that comes not from one hard journey, but from refusing, for years, to ever stop journeying at all. The lighthouse never judged them for it. It simply kept turning, kept offering its light, patient as the tide, ready for whoever needed finding their way home, even, sometimes, when home was simply the realization that they were allowed to rest. The night deepened. The sea grew calmer still, its small waves now barely a whisper against the rocky point below. Marin tended the lamp with the same unhurried care she always brought to it, checking the oil, polishing a small smudge from the glass, adjusting the angle by the barest fraction, so the beam swept its arc exactly as it always had, exactly as it always would. Below, in the small round room, Cale slept deeply, one weathered hand finally uncurled and resting open on the old quilt, no longer gripping anything. Not a rope, not a wheel, not the endless need to keep moving toward some horizon that always somehow stayed just out of reach. The boat, still resting gently against the dock, glowed faintly softer now, its strange starlight dimming the way embers dim, settling into a long, patient rest of its own, content to wait exactly as long as its sailor needed. The lighthouse beam swept on, out and around, asking nothing, offering everything, exactly as steady as it had always been. In the last quiet hours before dawn, Marin thought she heard, faintly, the sound of Cale's breathing settle into something even deeper, the particular stillness of someone who has finally, truly let go. She allowed herself a small, quiet smile and spoke softly to the dark water below, though there was no one left awake to hear her. "You do not need to chase the horizon tonight," she said. "The horizon will still be there tomorrow, patient as it always is. Tonight, you have already found exactly what you were looking for. You simply didn't know it would look like rest." The great lamp turned on, slow and steady, untroubled by the passing hours, needing no permission to continue its quiet work. Outside, the first faint hint of dawn began to soften the eastern sky, though true morning was still hours away. Simply a promise, gentle and unhurried, that morning would come exactly when it was meant to, and not a moment before. And so we leave the old lighthouse for tonight. Let the slow, steady sweep of its light settle over every tired thought in your mind. Let the sea below grow calm and quiet, the way it always does for those finally ready to rest. Let the patient turning of that old lamp carry you down into deep, steady, peaceful sleep. You do not need to chase anything tonight. You are allowed to simply be found, exactly where you are. Good night, traveler. Sleep well,